Hello and welcome to Amit's Tech Sessions. My name is Amit and I am a software architect. In this session, I'm going to cover an AWS service called AWS App Runner and will do a demo of how you can deploy a Spring Boot application using App Runner. So let's start. So what is AWS App Runner? AWS App Runner is a fully managed application service that lets you build, deploy and run web applications and API services without prior infrastructure or container experience. So what does that mean? It means that if you do not have a prior infrastructure or container experience, still you can deploy your web application microservices or APIs using AWS App Runner. AWS App Runner builds and deploys the web applications automatically. It load balances the traffic with encryption, and it also scales to meet your traffic demand. App Runner is primarily designed for the people who do not have experience with containers and still want to use containers for their application. So let's see how the architecture of AWS App Runner looks like. Primarily, AWS App Runner, it allows you to create a service by two mechanisms. So first, you can connect to a source code repository directly and create a service from that source code. Here I have taken an example of GitHub in the diagram. However, it also supports other source code repositories such as Bitbucket, etc. And the second mechanism is that you can connect to an ECR registry or Elastic Container Registry and can create a service using an image from the ECR registry. You can also pull the images from ECR public as well. What is actually service? I'm calling service here again and again, but an App Runner service is a running version of your application. And then there is a repository provider such as GitHub, Bitbucket, etc. And then there are connections which create with either repository provider or container image provider. So how does the App Runner 4-step workflow look like? So there are 4 key steps to follow in App Runner in order to deploy your application. So first, you connect to the source code or container image. This means that you provide either the repository URL of your code base or registry link to the service. Second, you configure some options for build settings and service settings. You select, for example, what vCPU you want to allocate to your application. The third one, that you validate all the details and then create an application on App Runner. And finally, the fourth step is that within minutes, you will get a secure load balance URL from the service, which can be used to access your running application. And now we are going to see a demo of how a Spring Boot application is deployed using App Runner. So here we are going to create an App Runner service. So there are two options. You have container registry or source code repository. So here I am going to select the option of source code repository. So there are provider options, couple of provider options, Bitbucket and GitHub. So I'm going to select GitHub option here, and I'm going to add a new connection. So here you can provide your connection name, which can be any meaningful name. So I'm going to put my connection name here, which is Amit Personal. So I have my personal GitHub account, which I'm going to connect to this App Runner service. So I've connected this, and now all the repositories from my personal account are available in the repository section. So I'm going to choose the Spring Boot Swagger repository. So this is a Spring Boot Swagger project, which has an integration with Swagger. This is based on Java 8, and we are going to deploy this using AWS App Runner. So here you can provide your source directory. Branch default is master. So source directory we can leave to the root because that's where you will run your maven commands. Here you can use a Corretto 8. Corretto is the Java equivalent of Amazon. Build command. So this project is based on Maven. So I'm going to use a build command ambient clean install -e, and then start command for the application. So here we will use ambient spring boot :run. In my repository or in my code base, I have port 8181. So that's what I have used. I will provide a meaningful name for the service. Let's call it Spring Boot service. From here, you can select the virtual CPU which is needed for your application. And then you can also select the virtual memory which is required by your application. You can add environment variables if you like. You can also configure here auto scaling behavior for your application. We are not going to do this because we are just going with the default configuration. You can also select health check, and you can configure your health check here. You can also optionally provide an IAM role for your security. You can optionally select a different AWS KMS key, customer managed, but I'm not selecting here. You can also select the networking here from public endpoint or private endpoint. So I'm selecting the public endpoint for this demo. You can also select the observability. You can enable tracing with AWS X-Ray, and then you can add your tags. So this page, you can review and validate all the information which we have selected from the previous pages. So all information I'm just reviewing here. So let's create and deploy. Now this create and deploy takes a few minutes. As you can see on the message above, this can take several minutes. So what I have done here, I have cut short the video just for the demonstration purpose. You can also see the logs, deployment logs by clicking on create service. So you can scroll down, and this is having your build logs and the deployment logs. So you can see the build success message from Maven. So this is these are the logs for Maven. So here now I'm refreshing the status to see the change status of this service. Or status is still showing in progress. Now the status seems to be complete. So if I refresh it, it shows succeeded. So let's get the URL from the application. So we are going to open this URL in the new tab, and there is something on the default URL. So I'll just use my endpoint called swaggerui.html. So I'm expecting it to provide a Swagger UI. So this is all from the demo. So let's go to the next slide. Now I will talk about App Runner configuration file. So when you create an AWS App Runner service using a source code repository, AWS App Runner requires information about building and starting your service. So you can provide this information each time you create a service using the App Runner console or API. Alternatively, you can set service options by using a configuration file. So the options that you specify in this file become part of your source repository, and any changes to these options are tracked similarly to how changes to your source code are tracked. So you can use the App Runner configuration file to specify more options than the API supports. App Runner configuration file is a YAML file that is named as apprunner.yaml in the source directory of your application repository. It provides build and runtime options for your service. and values in this file instruct the app runner how to build and start your service and provide the runtime context such as network settings and environment variables. So let's look at a sample app runner configuration file. So this sample app runner configuration file is for a Python application. You can see runtime Python 3 in this config file. Then for build, there are commands in the pre-build section. We are downloading a tar.zz file. Then for building, our command is pip install pip environment. Then we are doing the pip environment install. For post build, we are doing python manage.py test, and we have some environment variables configured, Django settings module. Then there's the value of it, and there is another environment variable similar to it. And then there is a run configuration to run this application. It needs a runtime version of Python 3.7.7. Then command to run it is pip environment run gunicorn and Django app runner .wsti, and then there is a log file into that. Then on the network side, there is a port 8000 defined, and then is environment my app port defined with this, and there is another environment variable here which is called my var example value example. Then there are secrets also defined along with their name and value in the sample app runner configuration file. So that's all for this session. In the next session, I'll be doing a deep dive on ECS, EKS, and we'll do the demos of each one of them. If you like my content, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Medium. There are QR codes up on the screen. Thank you very much for watching.